Hey, it's your close personal friend, Lou Brutus. Very pleased to be joined via Zoom by Chris Daughtry of Daughtry. Chris, good to see you. How are you?
Hey, man. Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
You are looking very well. Unlike
Thank you.
some of us, you are not porking up and packing on the pounds as you've been relatively locked down. How has 2021 been treating you so far, and how are you staying in shape?
I got to be honest, it's been a great year.
The world's going to hell, but damn it, Chris is doing good.
The world's going to shit, and for some reason, I'm doing great. No, it's been really good in the sense that I've gotten to catch up on like 14 years of life being on the road and always being gone. I haven't been home this long in 14 years. So
of course
I've gotten to, kind of rekindle relationships with my older kids, get closer to my younger kids, get closer to my wife. I've been more creative. The first few months were terrible. It was like a whole identity crisis and not knowing who I was, not knowing what to do with myself. And we were planting gardens, and I have chickens now. And I had a beard down to my chest. It was a bit of a shift, but I'm back to working on the record now. I've been hitting the gym very consistently. That's been like my saving grace and the cure for insanity and aggression and angst that builds up from being in the same walls, surrounded by the same walls for almost a year. So yeah, I'm in a better headspace than I was like 6 months ago. So for whatever that's worth.
Well, again, you look good and you sound good, and I'm glad you and yours are doing well. Now let's talk about music.
Hope yours is. You
yeah,
doing
no,
well?
thank you for asking.
Yeah,
knock on wood, everybody is doing okay. A little bit stir crazy. It's important for us to get out. Our dog Darla, she gets us out for walks, and I've gotten friendlier with a lot of the local animal population. Everybody's dogs and cats, and as a chicken man, as a chicken owner, do you have fox problems? Because we've got a fox running rampant after everyone's chickens around here.
It's funny you asked that, because about right before Halloween, I was inside doing some things. It was a beautiful sunny day. And when they were first old enough to go in the coop, we would let them free range. We'd let them walk outside. They never left the yard. Yeah. They'd go back to their coop when they were ready. And we did that for months. And I get a text from my neighbor saying, "Hey, a few of your chickens are up near the street." And I was like, well, that's weird, because they never go up there. And I went up there, and we had 9 of them, and there was only 5. And I'm like, oh shit, what's happening? And so they seemed spooked, and I start walking towards the backyard, and I see a fox haul ass through the fence. And I was like, oh God. And I look around, and there's bodies everywhere.
Yeah. He had himself a chicken dinner.
Yeah. We lost 4 of them and did a funeral, and the kids were devastated, and it was raining. And I literally dug, a full-on grave for them and put like tombstones up and everything. And we did a little ceremony, and they cried, and I cried, and we had a little chicken funeral, and they learned a little bit about death that day.
Do you guys also have dogs or cats or any other pets?
We don't. Kids are our only pets other than chickens. They don't hardly take care of the chickens. So we know. We've been through the whole dog thing before, and we get too busy with work, and we're like, okay, you want the dogs, it's your responsibility. This is what we did with our oldest kids, and they never did anything. And we're like, they deserve better homes than this. So we had to get rid of them. And we haven't had any pets ever since, other than getting chickens from during quarantine.
For those of you who are just joining us, this is the Farm Report with Chris Daughtry. No, it's not. But Chris Daughtry is my guest. Now then, let's get back to music. Let's begin with "World on Fire," which unfortunately, when I first heard it, I thought, well, here's the sadly perfect song for the months that we're living through.
So
tell me about the creation of this song, because I'm very happy to say it sounds like you're unleashing your rock side a hell of a lot more than you have in quite some time, and that made me really happy. It's a great song.
Thank you very much. And yes, this record is chock full of rock. We started writing this song back in January, and I can swear on here, right?
Sure, go ahead.
And
no fucking way! Don't do that, Chris.
We were me, Scott Stevens, and Marti Frederiksen, our producers. We were working on. It was brand new song day. We were in the studio. We were ready to write something fresh, and we were kind of scrolling through Instagram as you do when you're sitting around, catching up or whatever. And this was back when Australia was on fire, and there was no shortage of police brutality even then, and racial injustice going on. And it was just like today. There's always bullshit, right? There's always stuff going on that you're like, oh, this sucks. And I was like, the world's on fire, man. And we were like, well, there's a song title. And we were scrolling through these song ideas that Scott had, and I saw this folder that said "Fresh as Fuck," and I was like, "Ooh, what's that?" And it was the opening riff to what became "World on Fire." And we just started writing the lyrics and spitballing. And there was no COVID then. Like maybe a couple months after, like 2 or 3 months after we wrote it, the George Floyd stuff happened and COVID, and we were just like, whoa, like we didn't change the lyrics to fit the time. We didn't go back and try to conveniently make it work. It was like, holy shit, we wrote this song and it's all happening. And it was so weird, and it felt so relevant and prophetic and poignant. And we were like, this has to be the first single. So it sounded very convenient, but we actually waited because it felt too convenient. We're like, this is going to be a little on the nose right now. So we need to hold off for a little bit. And so, that's how it came about.
You mentioned Marti Frederiksen in there, who's an interesting cat. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with him and what he brings to the table. Cause again, he's helped create some great stuff.
Yeah. I've been working with Marti since Leave This Town, our second record. We started writing together, and we've written a lot of songs. We wrote Crawling Back to You. We wrote this song that I really loved that ended up being on this Batman Arkham City soundtrack called Drowning You. It's a really heavy rock tune that I loved a lot. And we've just written a lot over the years, and songs have made it, songs haven't, but we've always stayed, really close. And I always felt like he got me as an artist and really understood, the rock side of me more than some of the other guys that I'd worked with. And same with Scott Stevens, who I'd worked with prior to our fourth record. And I always felt like those would be a great combination, which is why I wanted to get them to do this record, especially now that I'm free and clear of a major label and I get to do exactly what I want. Yeah. Marti brings this old soul, old school rock vibe, and Scott kind of brings the new school rock, and it's a great combination because I've always been a melody guy, and I've always been drawn to singers. So any genre of music, it was always the singer first. And I was always a huge fan of those old 70s rock albums, and a huge fan of Foreigner and Lou Graham and David Coverdale, then Cornell and all the cats from the 90s that were huge influence on me. So I just think he kind of really taps into that and brings a lot of that like old school swag to some of the newer style. And it's a nice mashup. I
would be curious with your interests, if you ever watch music documentaries, not just for how a fan might normally watch them, but to actually learn and maybe get knowledge of the nuts and bolts that went into music creation. One example for me lately
100%.
that I hope you've seen is the Bee Gees documentary.
I was
Holy
just
cheese.
getting ready to say, holy Bee Gees.
Oh my God. And first of all, I love the Bee Gees. Secondly, to anybody who's watching you and I right now, don't walk to your television to HBO and watch the Bee Gees documentary. It's fascinating.
Phenomenal.
Please continue. I'm sorry for the interruption.
No, not at all. I was just getting ready to say, like, that was the latest one that I dove into per Scott Stevens' recommendation. And I was like, you forget just how many great songs that they've written, not just for the Bee Gees, but for other people.
For everybody else, yeah.
Yeah, and I love hearing how songs are written. It's always it always makes me feel better about my off days in the studio, because they're not any different than myself or how anybody else writes. I always feel like Chris Martin had said something in that documentary that really resonated with me. The great songs you don't write. You just kind of grab them out of the ether, and you just happen to be the one to get it that day. You know, somebody's going to write it, whether it's you or some other songwriter. And I feel like my favorite songs that I've ever written kind of came that way, where it was like, looking back, I'm like, I didn't work for that. I didn't really feel like I worked for that. I felt like it was a gift. And I feel like those guys really tapped into that a lot. Like when Barry was talking about being in the stairwell and just kind of loving the sound of the reverb in the hallway or in the staircase, and just, you don't know what it's like. And I was like, oh my God, I got chills just now, even thinking about how simple that song is and how beautiful and powerful it is. Sorry to go on, but yeah, I always look at those documentaries as a student. And a sponge. My other favorite documentary is Running Down a Dream, the Tom Petty documentary. That made me want to like get dropped from a label and go like start all over, just so I can go through the hardships of being on the LA Strip and trying to get a record deal, the old fashioned way. It just felt so inspiring.
Do you ever get, I guess nostalgic might be the word for, playing an absent Element and doing gigs at the Blue Gator? Or did you ever play the Fat Frog down in your area?
I hadn't heard of that one. But
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I do look at those days. They were transformative years for me, because without those gigs of 15 to 20 people that I practically begged to show up and put on the guest list, I feel like it gave me a real appreciation for where I'm at now. I never take it for granted. Even when we don't sell out a show or whatever, like, I don't let that shit get in my head. I'm like, the people that are here, they deserve every piece of me right now. And I think those years of grinding and spinning wheels and my other band Cadence and Absent Element, and I feel like every band needs to go through that to really appreciate when you finally get that opportunity to be in front of, thousands of people, or you get that opportunity to go audition for the right person or a record label or whatever. You gotta have those shitty gigs and that experience. I feel like it's imperative for especially rock bands.
You've mentioned labels a couple of times. Tell me about your current situation and how you're making it work to your advantage, because I found it kind of surprising that for a while they were pushing you in non-rock directions, when your whole appeal since you first hit the scene was the fact you were the rock guy. I would look at that sort of thing and just go, what the fuck?
Yeah, I think that's kind of indicative of major labels in general. Like, you get a hit in this one format, and that's where there's a massive audience and they go, woo, that's where we need to be focusing right here, here, you know, we had crossovers. That's where we need to be. And I think that's just like the nature of the beast, you know? And then you know, I can't not take responsibility for my part and seeing that as well and going, oh, well, and you know, you hear everybody telling, well, this band isn't using guitars anymore and they're going with the times. And you start to kind of believe, you know, and kind of believe that and start to second guess yourself as an artist and go, well, maybe nobody wants, you know, and you kind of get the wrong voices in your head. And there was a lot of self-doubt on my part. And then, you know, you hear the label saying, well, if we do this, we're going to stay here. We're going to stay on top. And you start to listen to that. And then you start to see that that's not the case. That's not what's happening. You're just not really doing what you believe in, and you're still not at the top, you know, and you go, well, if I'm not going to be at the top, then wouldn't I rather be doing what I love? And, you know, I finished my contract and we mutually parted ways. RCA was, you know, I had some great people over there that believed in me, and I had some people that didn't really know what to do with me. So it was a mutual parting, and I was very happy to part ways and be in a position that I was able to do exactly what I want to do the record I want to do, work with who I want to work with, not chasing radio, not chasing this or that, just do what comes naturally to me and work with people that believe in that from me. And it's, you know, that's how World on Fire came out. And I'm on a ADA, which is, you know, imprint on Warner Brothers, and I've got my own imprint on that. And it's been working out great, you know. Yeah, I couldn't be happier. I can't wait for everybody to hear the rest of the music, because it's not just here's our rock song and the rest is going to be, pop hits or whatever.
What is the timetable?
We are in we've got like the first 3 already in the can, and now we're back in the studio. I'm cutting vocals again next week. I was in the studio all last week. Took the week off to regroup and going back in we've got basically all of it written, and now it's a matter of tracking. And what we had to do with World on Fire is I love being in the studio with the guys, and I do miss that. But we had to do it remotely. Everybody recorded their parts in their respective studios, and, you know, those are the times. And the fact that we have the technology to do that is phenomenal. I mean, I'm working with Scott. He's in LA. He got stuck in LA during quarantine. So he's on Zoom in the studio, and it's like he's in the room. It's crazy that the way we are able to make records these days. But I certainly miss the camaraderie of having everybody all together and, you know, riffing off of each other. But this is how we got to do it. So to answer your question, after a bunch of rambling, I would say the timetable. We are definitely looking at getting it out this year. Hopefully sooner than later. Definitely looking like third quarter. If I had to put a timetable on it.
And again, you touched on something that I think is sort of a hallmark to your career. You kept referring to the guys. I think you prefer to be more of a band guy than just some guy who goes out and sings. You know, Daughtry is a band. It's not a guy. Why do you like the framework of a group more than just you being you?
Everybody that inspired me to be a musician growing up were bands. You know, my favorite band, the band that actually made me want to get on stage and do this for a living, was the band Live. And I saw them in '97 on the Secret Samadhi tour. And I just remember, I saw them at, the first time was Richmond, Virginia, and then Virginia Beach Amphitheater. And that was the way I look at documentaries, was how I was looking at that show. My jaw was dropped and I was taking mental notes. And I was like, I'm fucking doing that. That's exactly what I want to do with my life. And I was so like, I loved the records, but then I heard him live and I'm like, oh my God, he's so much better live even. How is he, you know? And my head exploded. I was 16, 17 years old. And at that moment, like in my mind, my path was carved, and that's exactly where I was headed. And so to me, it was always a band like that. That was just what, you know, the everyone I listened to, everyone that inspired me to want to write music, were bands. So that was like, there was never a thought in my head of, I just wanted to be, you know, this, solo singer with anonymous guys behind me, you know, or gals.
Did live inspire you at all for the fact that they were from a fairly small town? I think they're from York, PA. Yeah. And you're from, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It's not McKinleysville, North Carolina, but you're from a fairly, what's your hometown?
I actually grew up in a town called Lasker, North Carolina. And it was like, the town was like this small. It was,
you could see it across the borough. Yeah.
It had like 900 people. It still looks exactly the same. And then later I lived in McLeansville, this town called McLeansville.
That's what I was thinking of, McLeansville. Yeah.
And the reason that kind of took off is that was where I was from, is because that's where I happened to be living when I was on Idol. And I was only there for maybe a couple years before we moved to Greensboro. But you know how Wikipedia, they grab onto something and it becomes gospel. But Lasker is where I grew up, and I was around music. My granddad played, my dad played, and they were into country music. And I just, even though I was surrounded by it, like I didn't really gravitate toward it until I was in my teens. But yeah, I think the fact that they came from such a small town, anytime you see someone that you're like idolizing, and they didn't come from some big city where they had access to all the labels, and that is inspiring. I think that's something that a lot of young musicians, you know, can take solace in. It's like, you don't have to be from the big major cities to get recognized, especially now. You got YouTube. Shit, I wish I had that when I was starting out.
You've name dropped a couple of shows that you saw early on, and I know the Greensboro Coliseum has been there for a while. I've seen shows. I think the last show I saw there was Five Finger Death Punch a couple of Decembers ago. But give me a few other early live concerts that you attended that maybe put some oomph into your life.
98, and I'll probably get like 98 Metallica Reload tour.
That wasn't bad. I saw that.
That was a fantastic show. Yeah. Not everybody's favorite album, but it was an amazing show.
Actually, that's an underrated record. That's a great record. People can bitch about it all they want.
I agree. My favorite Metallica albums were the ones that I can sing along to, and the ones that I can remember melodies. My all-time favorite is the Black Album. I know that's not original, but that was the record that I first heard of Metallica as a 13-year-old kid, and I was just like, holy shit. What
is this?
This is incredible. Metal can sound like this. Then speaking of Greensboro Coliseum, my first show I saw there was Linkin Park and POD. Was it Linkin Park, POD, and Hoobastank, I think was it?
Oh, great.
Yeah. Not the best sounding room.
Yeah, none of those.
Very boomy room for rock. Yeah.
But you got to make the best with what you got. So, well, listen, I'm looking forward to the new music, hopefully before the end of the year. And I would ask about touring, but it's going to be tour. You'll be touring when there's touring. We can leave it at that. I suppose.
I wish I had an answer. I wish I could tell everybody I'll be out next month, but you know, we're all scratching our heads at this point.
Well, good stuff. Chris,
today is a new day. Maybe today's a new day. Maybe things will change rather quickly. Who knows?
Fingers crossed. All I know is I'm going to get a vaccine as quickly as I can so I can get back into a pit and down to a photo pit and onto a stage.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that.
Honest to God. Well, my best to you and yours, and
Thank you,
really
Lou.
appreciate your time, and belated Happy New Year to you. Chris Daughtry of Daughtry.
Same to you, Lou. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.